Hi, it's me again. So it's been ages since I made a video. Forgive me, I was just really overwhelmed with the editing. See, I'm really not good with editing, but since it's lockdown and there's pretty much nothing to do, I decided to go back to my older hobby of making YouTube videos and maybe inspire my viewers in this dark time. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I had this fabric for like 5 years now. I kind of use it for my little sister's cocktail dress for her birthday, and since I had enough left over, I decided to rough drape it, and this is what I came up with. So with that, I kind of drew inspiration from Christian Dior and altered it a bit because I didn't like the front bow on the waistline on this because it kind of made it look bulky. So I drew inspiration from the mantilla because I kind of like the embroideries and I like flamenco, and it really looks good on red fabric. So this is my rough sketch of my design, and with that I draped my bodice. So with a square piece of fabric, and while working on the bias, I draped it. Well, kind of rehearsed. You can see the marks on this, but yes, this is on the bias, and I already made my marking, so I'll show you how I draped it. So I'm just going to smooth it along the neckline. I'm going to start with the center line on the neckline. So I'm just going to pin along, smooth it, and pin along on the side seams. Smooth then on the center line of the waistline. Smooth, then I'm going to start pleating. So with this, I decided to went asymmetrical with my draping or with my pleats. I kind of wanted to look very organic. So you just have to mark that with your notches so that you know where to pleat. So just smooth along on the side seams. Then once you figured out that you like it, just trim and slash if need be. With this, I kind of went pretty extra with the allowance just in case shit happens, which usually does with this kind of project. So just slash as needed, trim. So there's our bodice. I also tried it on some chiffon because since we're working with satin chiffon there. And after that, I kind of rough lay out it on my fabric so I know how much yardage this will cost. So for the skirt, I decided to use a half circle skirt. So there it is. There are my patterns. Kind of backed it with organza so that it will be stable, because on its own it won't support the weight of this gas. So it is important that you back it with organza, okay? Which I really do prefer over fusibles, because fusings or fusibles are a nightmare to work with. With organza, it's very couture actually. Preferably you should use silk organza, but since I'm on a budget, I guess this will do. So with this, I'm flatlining the organza and the satin chiffon so that they'll act as one, so no need to knot it. And then I will sew it or stay stitch it on all four sides of each panel. No need to knot it even. Okay, so once all four sides are stay stitched, now we just have to trim the excess. And after this, I just flatten them inside the book for a day. I'm just that paranoid. You can do it or not. And here I'm sewing the dart on the center front bodice. This is a Hollywood dart. This dart usually appears when the figure is really busty, because again we have to work with a fitted bodice so that this will fit perfectly. And with that, I basted the pieces together because we will fit this several times until we are able to get the perfect fit on our dress form. You can see it's still crinkly there. I did this several times until I was able to get the right fit with this one. And then, okay, now I'm about to cut the bias, or the drape part on the bias. I pinned it, then tack stitched it on the front bodice, then sandwiched it with the back pieces of the bodice after I am satisfied with the drape. Now I'm overcast stitching the raw edges. This is a practice in couture, but if you don't have time, you can use a serger or other ways of, finishing seams. So these are the panels for my embroidered bits. So there's the rolled collar, which will be used for the neckline, and the folded bow, which will be cut on the bias rather. So here are a few montage of my embroidery in progress. So you can see I'm working with the rolled collar. So this will be cut on the bias, and this one is the folded part of the bow. Well, in reality, I'm not really as fast as this, so I had to speed it up. This process alone took me 3 months to finish. And yeah, it also took me some trial and error, because I really didn't plan the color design or the color story of this embroidery. So pretty much I'm just stuck with what I have, since we can't really go out. No one can really go out during the lockdown. Okay, so here I am filling the base of the flower, and there's the first 2 parts of this embroidered panels. Oh, it looks so buff there. Okay, so here are the close-ups. So you can see I've used the vermicelli technique in tambour embroidery so that the surface would look rich and wouldn't be so empty spaced. And here's what it looks like on the wrong side of the fabric. It looks very clean and very professional. So once I'm done with that, I've pressed the embroidered, or the back part of the embroidery, which is a must, because if you press on the right side, chances are you will flatten the sequence and you will discolor it. And here we are, or here I am rather, flatlining the fabric with the organza backing so that it will stabilize. So I'm also going to do the same with the back part of the embroidered panels. And after that all has been basted or flatlined, I have pinned these seam lines before cutting so that they wouldn't shift as I cut. So I'm just going to cut along the allowance of each panels. Carefully not getting caught with the basting threads. Okay, so here I am catch stitching the horsehair trim on the bow part, or the top part of the bow, so that it will give it structure, so that it wouldn't look sloppy once it's done. So I will avoid stitching a millimeter away from the horsehair trim so that it wouldn't get caught with the horsehair trim. So actually this technique is applied in tailoring, especially on the collars when sewing canvas as backing for blazers or jackets. And here I am stitching the sides or the corners of the false bows, pivoting, avoiding the corners so that I would get a clean, sharp corner once I turn this over. But before that, you have to press it, of course. Okay, so press, turn over, then pull the corners so that it will look sharp on the right side. Okay, and also I forgot, trim or slash the excess on the corner at an angle so that it will look neatly. And here what I'm doing is prick stitching the back sides, because one will not be able to perform back stitches, or rather understitching on these pieces, so it will need the help of prick stitching for it to stay flat. So I'm doing this at a 1/4 of an inch length for the stitch, not pulling, just pulling firmly enough, not very tight. And after that I will pile the pieces for my false bow and will backstitch them, because one cannot simply do this by machine, because if you do this by machine, chances are your needles will break. Imagine sewing 16 layers of fabric. This doesn't have to be so fine. And here I am sewing the false snout by hand, so I'm just doing some tacking stitches here, very roughly at the back. So this piece here was also cut on the bias. These were the leftovers of the fabric that I cut, and I will stitch this on the skirt. And here you can see I'm tack stitching the rolled collar on the bodice. I'm doing this so that it wouldn't create so much bulk on the collar, and I'm actually gently pulling the threads so that they will firmly close, and knotting the stitch. So this is what it looks like. And now I've got some organza for my backing. I tried flat lining this, but again the fabric stretched, and so I trimmed it and I flat lined it again. And after I removed the stitches, and this what happened, so it was an epic fail. So I still tried to salvage the organza skirt and tack stitched it on the allowance of the skirt, so folding the allowance in, hiding it, and tack stitching it so that it wouldn't go to waste. So now we're on with our zipper. So here I am backstitching the invisible zipper. You can see that I've added extra allowance on the center back of this dress, are at around 3 inches actually. Well, just in case it needs resizing or altering, there will be enough room for it to be altered. So this is what it looks like without the lining yet. And there's the organza backing. And now I'm attaching the boning channels, which are made of bias binding on the seams of the bodice lining. Okay, so then I've added the boning inside the channels and I've pressed it on the dress form so that it will take shape, its shape. I steam pressed it and I set it on a very high setting. Well, not really high, maybe at around the wool setting. You have to steam press that so that the plastic boning will take the shape of the bust. So gently I just shape it, and here's what it looks like. There's the lining. And now I'm tack stitching the rolled collar on the neckline, or rather facing of the lining. So after this, I'm going to back stitch it for stability. You know me, I kind of hand finished the lining of the dress, you know, just in case it ever needs any alteration, because if you do this by machine and if it needs alteration, chances are you will really stress the fabric. And after backstitching those pieces, of course, as an alternative for understitching, we should brick stitch the facing, folding all the allowances of the collar and the lining on the facing side. And here I am closing the lining by using tack stitches. I really do love these stitches. They're so versatile. These kind of stitches can only be applied on areas of the garment which will not cause any stress on the garment. Okay, so we're done. And now I'm attaching the hook with a buttonhole stitch. So this is the most professional way of attaching a hook, by using a buttonhole stitch. And here you can see that I'm doing or creating the thread bar by doing buttonhole stitches on 6 strands of threads. This is an alternative to the metal eye, and there are great perks of using a thread bar as a alternative to an eye or metal hook, or rather metal eye. So after finishing the thread bar for the eye, okay, now I'm going to attach the center back boning by hand. So I'm going to do that by prick stitching on the sides and on the top of the boning. Then at the bottom, I will secure it with whip stitches. So the reason why I did this by hand is because in case for any alteration, the stitches can be easily undone. But mind you, these stitches are strong, but can easily be undone. There. Then I'm attaching the waist stay, which is made from ground ribbon. Okay, I'm doing this by either, well, you can either do tiny back stitches or prick stitches, because you know, for easy alteration. Now don't forget to use a big hook and eye at the back. This time use the metal ones. Now for the bust stays, I've used thread bars for the bust stays to slide easily, like a belt. So this is how it works. That's why they're called stay. Now for the finishing touch, I'm using what's this stitch again? Oh yes, tack stitches for the false knot. Okay, now to secure this, you have to do a reverse version of the tacking stitches so that it will secure itself. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep on doing that until the end, then going reverse to secure it. Okay, so here's our finished product after 4 months of working on it. Here's the close-up of the embroideries. The part that you won't see. The neckline, the back neckline, so thank you for watching, guys, and I hope you all stay safe and healthy, and please don't forget to click like, subscribe, and share if this has given you enough value. Don't forget to follow me on my Instagram and on my Facebook pages, which will be written below the description.